Hello, and welcome to the classroom instruction video for the Magellan's Expedition simulation. In this cooperative game, you and your group will be guiding Magellan's expedition on its mission to find cloves. Be ready for dangers. Magellan started out with 5 ships and 270 men, but only 1 ship and 18 men returned safely after making the complete voyage around the world. Not everyone died, some just returned early. To play the game, you'll need the following items. Your instructor may wish to pause the video to give time to hand them out, and at various times during this video in order to help students with the rules. You'll need a game board that shows the different ships of Magellan and different ways of keeping track of your resources. You'll also need crew counters and luck counters. There should be enough crew counters that each C on each of the ships is covered. That makes a total of 25. If a ship is lost because of an event or because of a lack of crew, students should be given a ship is lost card to cover that ship. You'll need at least 10 6-sided dice per group. It's also good to have some place for students to roll all those dice. It's also good to have some place for students to roll all those dice. A success board is not necessary, but will help you keep track of failures and successes. Crew members go in the C sections, and each one represents 10 men. All C sections should be covered at the start of the game. You can see that here. A ship needs at least 1 crew member or must be abandoned. You can freely move crew between ships, unless otherwise noted. Dead crewmen go into the burial C square. You can never lose your final crew member on your final ship. Right, so if there is something that says to lose crew and you only have 1 ship and 1 crew, you can ignore that and keep your 1 ship and 1 crew so you can still finish the game. A marker should be placed on the 8 of the cunning, power, provisions, and seafaring areas. That number is how many dice students will roll during a check. Event cards can cause those numbers to go up or down. We will discuss how to use these numbers later. As you can see here, we have placed a coin over the 8 on cunning, power, provisions, and seafaring. Luck is earned from answering questions correctly. It can be used to change a failure into a success during a check. Luck goes on the ship figurehead, as seen here. As explorers travel, they pass the time with a trivia game. Each turn, student groups will be asked a question. If the group gets it right, they gain 1 luck. Each group can answer on their own and win a luck counter. Groups are not in competition with each other. Multiple groups can earn a luck counter. A question will be provided. Groups can discuss amongst themselves what they think the correct answer is. The correct answer will then be given, and then groups can award themselves the luck counter if they answer correctly. So here's our first question. If you answer correctly, you'll gain 1 luck. And I'll give you an example of how you can use luck later. Which of the following statements about Magellan's expedition is false? A. Most of the men and ships who went on it were unable to return home. B. Because the losses were so high, it was unprofitable. C. Magellan himself was killed in the Philippines. Or D. Exploration is difficult because while you know where you want to go, you're not sure how to get there. The correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was B. If you got that answer correct, give yourself 1 luck. To play this game, you'll also need an event deck, which should be handed out now. The event deck includes cards that can be beneficial or that could hurt you. For example, the event card on the right, Important Navigation Equipment was damaged, would lead you to decrease your seafaring by 1, while the card on the left, the ship's cat has learned a new trick, inspiring the crew, increases your power by 1. So if you were to draw the ship's cat card and your power went up by 1, you would change your power level by 1. So you may recall we started off with cunning, power, provisions, and seafaring all at 8. But having drawn the cat card, our power goes up from 8 to 9. so you remove the marker to help you remind yourself of that. Now that you understand how cards work, go ahead and draw a card and follow its instructions. Instructors may wish to pause the video at this point to help students understand their cards. Once you're ready to continue, please unpause the video. Sometimes you'll be asked to make a check. To do that, you'll roll a number of dice equal to the number you have on a particular characteristics. For example, sometimes you'll be asked to make a check. To do that, you'll roll a number of dice equal to the number you have on a particular characteristic. For instance, if you have an 8 in cunning, you would roll 8 dice. If you had a 9 in power, you would roll 9 dice. If you had a 7 in seafaring, on a seafaring check, you would roll 7 dice. In this game, when faced with a challenge, you'll roll a dice to see how successful you are. In this game, when faced with a challenge, you'll roll dice to see how successful you are. A 1, 2, or 3 is a failure, and a 4, 5, or 6 is a success. You count the number of successes to see how well you did. In this example, we have 3 successes, which isn't very good. That's where luck comes in. Let's say that you have 2 luck from answering questions correctly. You could spend that luck to change 2 failures into 2 successes, as we have done here. That will give you a better result. So here we spent 2 luck. 2 of the failures then switched over to the success side of the board. Please note that you don't add successes, you change failures into successes. If you are out of dice, you can't get any more successes. So now the journey begins and we have our first event. Instructors may want to pause the video at this point as we go through to help. You need to make a seafaring check to keep your fleet together and going in the correct direction. Roll a number of dice equal to the number in the seafaring row. So if you have 7 in the seafaring row, you would roll 7 dice. 8, you would roll 8 dice. You can spend luck to change failures into successes after the results are explained, not before. This will allow you the opportunity to decide whether or not you actually want to spend the luck. Please make sure that you put your dice on the success or failure board, or at least group them together and count the number of successes. If you have 2 or fewer successes, remember successes are 4, 5s, and 6s, failures are 1, 2, or 3s, remove 2 ships of your choice. They got lost and went back to Spain. If you had 3 or 4 successes, remove 1 ship of your choice. It got lost and went back to Spain. If you have 5 or 6 successes, remove 1 crew from a ship of your choice. 1 ship got lost, hit a storm, and lost a crew member, but later rejoined the group. If you have 7 or more successes, nothing bad happens. You can now spend luck to change a failure into a success, or you can hold on to that luck and use it later. Remember, if you lose a ship because of an event, or because you don't have enough crew to man it, let your instructor know so you can receive a ship is lost card to cover that ship to help you remember that it is no longer functioning. We now have a question. Answer correctly with your group and gain 1 luck. Which statement best describes the international trade that Europeans engaged in before the Age of Exploration began? A. It was very active between Europe and India, but not China. B. It was very active between Europe and China, but not India. C. It was almost non-existent because Europe was so poor. Or D. Europe was cut off from the Indian Ocean trade and forced to buy products at higher prices from intermediaries from Islamic civilization. And I will give you the correct answer in 3, 2, 1. And the correct answer was D. If you got that right, give your group a luck counter. It's now time to draw a card. During your voyage, people will have to eat. And oftentimes, the sailors on the voyages of exploration did not have enough food to eat. That's when we have a provisions check. So make a provisions check, and that means rolling dice equal to the number in that row. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 3 crew from sickness and starvation. You choose what ship they are lost from. If you have 3 successes, lose 2 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 4 or 5 successes, lose 1 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 6 successes or more, you lose no crew. So now we are on the east coast of South America. Our voyage is making so we have successfully traveled from Spain to the east coast of South America. So we are making some headway, so that is good news. And of course, as you travel, you pass the time with a trivia game. Answer the question correctly and gain 1 luck. Which of the reasons is not a reason why Europeans were willing to take the risk to explore? A. Europeans were have-nots who were comparatively poor. B. Islamic civilization controlled trade between Europe and Asia, and if they could find an alternate route, they could make more money themselves. C. They wanted access to Chinese gunpowder. Or D. They wanted to spread Christianity. I will give the correct answer in 3, 2, 1. The correct answer is C. They wanted access to Chinese gunpowder. Please draw and resolve a card. And as our voyage continues, it is now time for another provisions check. Make a provisions check on and as our voyage continues, it is now time for another provisions check. Make a provisions check, rolling a number of dice equal to that number in that row. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 3 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 3 successes, lose 2 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 4 or 5 successes, lose 1 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 6 successes or more, you lose no crew. You are making headway in your expedition and have reached the southern part of South America, a place known for many storms. You now face a storm. During this event, you cannot move crew members between ships. Make a seafaring check, remember that means rolling a number of dice equal to your seafaring number, to see how well you weather the storm. If you have 2 or fewer successes, remove 2 ships. They sank. If you have 3 or 4 successes, remove 1 ship of your choice. It sank. If you have 5 or 6 successes, remove 1d6 crew from a ship or ships of your choice. Those crew were lost in the storm. 1d6 means that you roll 1 6-sided dice 1 time. If you have 7 or more successes, you weathered the storm so successfully that nothing bad happens. Remember, as always, that you can spend luck to change a failure to a success. Please draw a card. It is now time for another provisions check. Make a provisions check, rolling a number of dice equal to that number in that row. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 3 crew from sickness and starvation. You choose what ship they are lost from. If you have 3 successes, lose 2 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 4 or 5 successes, lose 1 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 6 successes or more, you lose no crew. You are making excellent progress across the open ocean. It's very difficult, and many crew members, though, are frightened. They aren't sure if they'll ever see land again. This leads to a mutiny. During this event, you cannot move crew members between ships. This leads to a mutiny. If you've never heard this term before, it means a kind of rebellion on a ship, where the crew try and overthrow their captain and take over the ship for themselves. During this event, you cannot move crew members between ships. Make a power check to try and put down the mutiny. Remember, that means that you roll a number of dice equal to your power number. If you have 2 or fewer successes, the 2 ships with the fewest crew rebel and return to Spain. If all have the same number, you choose 2 ships. You lose those crew members and those ships. If you have 3 or 4 successes, the ship with the fewest crew returns to Spain. If you have 5 or 6 successes, remove 2 crew from a ship of your choice. There was a mutiny, but you were able to put it down with some loss to your crew. If you have 7 or more successes, remove 1 crew counter. You put down the mutiny quickly, but had to execute the ringleaders. Answer this question correctly with your group and gain 1 luck. Which statement best describes who is best positioned to go out and explore? A. Centralized monarchies like Spain and Portugal. Answer this question correctly with your group and gain 1 luck. Which statement best describes who was best positioned to go out and explore? A. Centralized monarchies like Spain and Portugal, which had developed efficient systems for collecting taxes in order to fund professional armies as part of the Reconquest. B. Centralized monarchies like France and Italy that had developed efficient banking systems as part of international trade. C. The Catholic Church because it was a truly international organization that had access to vast resources. Or D. The Medici Banking Corporation because it was a truly international organization that had access to vast resources. And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was A. Centralized monarchies like Spain and Portugal, which had developed efficient systems for collecting taxes in order to fund professional armies as part of the Reconquest. Well, I have good news. You are finally getting close to land, and the sailors are very happy to finally be able to set foot on land and maybe restock their provisions. And you successfully arrive in the Philippines. There, the crew and the priests that they're bringing with them will celebrate their first Catholic Mass in the Philippines, an event that is still remembered today. And there is a picture of the cross that Magellan put up. The actual cross is much smaller now. It's been kind of weathered and people took pieces of it. So it's encased in that cross there. So it's a cross with inside a cross. And you can see in the painting above the meeting between the European explorers and the Filipinos. And the celebration of this first Mass helped lead to an alliance between one group of Filipinos and the explorers. The Filipinos will resupply you, so raise your provision level by 1. Right? Every group raises its provision level by 1. Now, the good news is that for your explorers was that you were able to make an alliance with some Filipinos, but other Filipinos do not like you, and this is going to lead to conflict and eventually a battle in the Philippines. So as you fight with this other group of Filipinos, make a power check to see how the battle goes. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 2d6 crew in the battle. That means you roll 2 dice and you lose that number of crew. If you have 3 or 4 successes, lose 1d6 crew in the battle. If you have 5 or 6 successes, lose 2 crew in the battle. If you have 7 or more successes, you escape with no deaths, except, and this happens in every case, Magellan will die. So you lose Magellan. That has no game impact other than noting that you have lost your leader. Answer the following question correctly with your group and gain 1 luck. Which of the following is not a reason why the Spanish were able to conquer the native civilizations of the Americas? A. They had advanced technology, such as metal armor and swords, as well as gunpowder weapons. B. The Aztecs valued peace and rejected warrior values, making them vulnerable to invasion. C. They had the support of Native American allies. Or D. The Native Americans were devastated by diseases that they had not had the opportunity to develop immunities against. And the correct answer was B. Draw and resolve a card. And it's now time to make a provisions check. Roll number of dice equal to your provisions number. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 3 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 3 successes, lose 2 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 4 or 5 successes, lose 1 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 6 successes or more, you lose no crew. For our next event, you need to make a choice. During this time, slavery was common, and Magellan owned a slave named Enrique. Enrique came from Southeast Asia. There are disagreements about what part he came from. Some say the Philippines, some say Indonesia, some say Malaysia. For our purpose, it's just important to note that he is from Southeast Asia. Magellan, in his will, said that at his death, Enrique should be given his own freedom. Does your group follow Magellan's will and give Enrique his freedom? Or do you decide that his linguistic abilities are too important, his ability to speak different languages, and you do not honor Magellan's will and do not give him his freedom? So good news. Your allies have invited you to a banquet, and the banquet is delicious. The bad news was the banquet was a trap. They were plotting against you. The plan was to massacre you at the banquet. You therefore need to make a cunning check. If you chose to free Enrique, as Magellan had stipulated in his will, his knowledge of foreign languages allowed him to discover the plot, and he informed you. That lets you roll 2 additional dice. So if your cunning is an 8, you would get to roll 10 dice. However, if you decided to keep Enrique enslaved, he doesn't inform you, or maybe he just didn't learn about it, in which case you roll 2 less dice. Right? So if you would have normally rolled 8 dice for cunning, you only get to roll 6. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 2d6 crew in a massacre. If you have 3 or 4 successes, lose 1d6 crew in a massacre. If you have 5 or 6 successes, lose 2 crew in a massacre. If you have 7 or more successes, you escape the massacre without suffering any casualties. Together with your group, answer the following question correctly and gain 1 luck. Which of the following statements best describes the Columbian Exchange? A. It was a mutually profitable exchange between the Old and New Worlds. B. It was the uneven exchange of food, animals, and disease between the Old and New Worlds. C. It was a mutually negative exchange of diseases between the Old and New Worlds. Or D. It was a stock exchange named in honor of Christopher Columbus, at which goods from the Old and New Worlds were exchanged. And the correct answer in 3, 2, 1 was B. Please draw a card. And it's now time for a provisions check. Make a provisions check, rolling a number of dice equal to that number in that row. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 3 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 3 successes, lose 2 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 4 or 5 successes, lose 1 crew from sickness and starvation. And if you have 6 successes or more, you lose no crew. So you're once again making progress, and you in fact get to modern-day Malaysia, to the Moluccas, which is where you wanted to go in order to obtain cloves. So good news, you finally arrive in the Moluccas and you can trade for cloves. However, you need to try and bargain well in order to get the best deal. So make a cunning check to see how well you bargain. Roll a number of dice equal to your cunning number. If you have 2 or fewer successes, you obtain 2 cloves for each ship remaining. Place your clove counters to the side. Instructors may wish to hand out clove counters at this time based on how many cloves students get. If you have 3 to 6 successes, you obtain 3 cloves for each ship remaining. If you have 7 or more successes, you obtain 4 cloves for each ship remaining. So if you were to roll 5 successes and you have 2 ships, you should obtain a total of 6 cloves. Draw a card. And now it's time for our final provisions check to see how many people finally return home. So make a provisions check. If you have 2 or fewer successes, lose 3 crew from sickness and starvation. You choose what ship they're lost from. If you have 3 successes, lose 2 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 4 or 5 successes, lose 1 crew from sickness and starvation. If you have 6 successes or more, you lose no crew. Congratulations, you have finally arrived in Spain. It's now time to see which voyage was the most successful. Give yourself 1 point for each crew member who survived, 3 points for each ship that made it back, and 4 points for each clove. How many points do you have? Which group was the most successful? Here are some possible questions for reflection. How successful was your expedition? Why do you think that way? What notable events occurred during your expedition? What did you learn about this time period and the people lived in it through this historical simulation?